Now, it's one thing we were talking about, the family connection of the Hicks family to Hicks Nurseries. But there are many families, many local families that have also worked. And one family comes to mind is the McCue family. They're almost as long in the Hicks Nurseries as you are.
Almost. There's five generations of Wickies have worked for our family.
And still working today?
Yes. We have two in that family that work for us today.
Right. Now, when you go to Hicks Nurseries, people that drive by today see that there's been big changes on the property as far as the buildings. It's a very modern look. What made you decide to kind of expand and shift things around a bit?
Well, over the last 5 years, Dan, we kind of took a look at our greenhouses and buildings, and they've been built in the 70s for the most part, right, to respond to the needs that we had then. And they served us very well. But as we looked at them over the past few years, we said, well, what was right for the 70s isn't going to be right for the coming decades looking ahead. So it's fine to look back 20 years and say we've been in good shape, but we really need to be looking forward 20 years and saying, are we in good shape? And if we're not, get ready for it, because that's what's coming.
And do you think that each generation, we went from Isaac Hicks to Edward to Henry to Edwin to Fred, each generation had to look ahead like that in order for this business to survive? Is there?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why my grandfather got into moving big trees.
Right.
Is because that's where the market was in the 1890s and 1900s and 10s and 20s. And then things changed, and there was a long period of adaptation to kind of make do through the Depression and to survive the problems in the 40s when there was no manpower available, and the market was changing and trying to adapt to a business serving smaller properties and the needs of the community.
Now that's kind of where I was heading with that question is, how do you anticipate, how as a businessman do you anticipate? I guess at the time it would have been either Henry or Edwin that would have had to deal with the boom in Levittown, the suburbia coming in, and do you think they did a good job anticipating that? Was that a hard time for the business?
I think that was a hard time for the business because you have people who have been trained and whose youthful experience was in the 20s and that period, and by the 50s they were approaching retirement, and so it was a struggle. Right. For them, and it was a time of transition. I think Long Island underwent great transitions. We had to shrink back on our growing, right, and change the direction and kind of look at the talents that we had and where the market was going and how we could best respond. So that's where we are today. Is
there a point in the history where you could point to and say, this is when we kind of went from being exclusively tree and shrub experts to flower experts?
Well, when you look at the history of the garden center business, we got very lucky in that around 1960 was when annuals started to boom in garden centers. And that time in the early 60s is when I came in, and that was my interest, and so we kind of pushed that and have been able to deal with that ever since. So there was a big change in the demand just at the time when we were looking to change in that direction. Maybe with hindsight we were lucky, I don't know.
What brings in a boom? What makes something hot in the nursery business?
I think if we could figure that out and we knew what was going to be the next, we'd all be millionaires. But we have to kind of respond, just as you do in the newspaper business. We've got to kind of be listening to our customers, know what they want, and give them what they want.
Now, before us, we have several different flowers, several different varieties. And basically, we're going to kind of transition now into what people should be doing right now, and particularly in mind with these flowers. First of all, it's spring. It's now hot. It's a beautiful day out today as we're taping this. What should people be doing outside?
Boy, it's time to get going. And anybody who doesn't feel it, on a day like today when they step outside, they're obtuse, is all I can say, because today's the kind of day when you want to be outside. I think it's human nature to want to get out and dig in the garden and get started. But there are things. We've got these beautiful pansies and primrose here and Johnny jump-ups. These are things that can and should be planted in the garden now to give them a good start. People can start their vegetable gardens with lettuce and peas and cabbage, broccoli, lots of things. Too early for the tomatoes and peppers yet, but there's lots of things to get started.
And one thing is, here in the studio, we've all been commenting on how striking the colors are. Is there something different about colors this year? Are they more intense this year?
I certainly think they are. We saw at the beginning of the program the shot of these Fiesta double New Guinea impatiens, and the colors just get more intense and more brilliant all the time. The breeding that's going on in new flower varieties is amazing. And it's bringing a lot of interest, gives people reasons to go out and try something new every year. And that's what makes it exciting. I just can't get over the breadth of colors in pansies that we have today. We've got pink pansies here on the table.
Right.
And it was a few years ago that all pansies were yellow and with a black center. Now we've got yellow and blue and pink and white and so many colors of pansies and violas that are just exciting, give people an opportunity to match the color of their flowers with the color of their house or whatever they want to do, so they can create the same kind of color looks outside that we're all familiar with doing inside.
Now,